God, hear me out. I can't do this alone. Please.
Have you ever prayed and heard nothing back? Not even a sign, not even a whisper. And somewhere deep inside you started asking, God, are you ignoring me? But here is something most Christians don't know. In Scripture, some of the closest people to God went through long seasons where He said absolutely nothing, and those seasons were not rejection, they were design. Look at Job, a man described as blameless. Yet in the middle of his suffering, he cried out, I go forward, but He is not there. Backward, but I cannot perceive Him. Job 23:8-9. That is not a weak believer speaking. That is a man God Himself trusted. And yet, silence. Or consider Psalms. David said, How long, O Lord? Will you forget me forever? Psalm 13:1. Imagine that, a man after God's own heart, feeling forgotten. So if you feel like God is silent, you are not outside His will. You might be exactly inside a pattern He has always used. Here is the truth most people miss. God's silence in your life is often connected to His trust in you, not punishment trust. In Genesis 22, when God tested Abraham, there was no explanation, no discussion, no repeated instructions, just a command, and then silence. And Abraham had to walk for days without hearing anything else from God. Think about that. The weight of obedience without reassurance. Because God was not trying to inform Abraham. He was revealing Abraham. And this is where many people misunderstand what is happening in their lives right now. You think you need answers, but God is looking for alignment. You want clarity, but God is watching your consistency. There is a pattern in Scripture. When God is about to take someone deeper, He often becomes quieter. Not absent, just quieter. Even Jesus experienced this. On the cross, He cried, my God, why have you forsaken me? Matthew 27:46. That moment of silence was not abandonment. It was the fulfillment of purpose. Which means this: silence does not mean God has stepped away from your life. Sometimes it means He is allowing something to be completed in you. Now let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself. When God was answering quickly, when things were moving, were you seeking Him the same way you are now? Because many people don't notice this. When answers are fast, dependency becomes shallow. But when heaven is quiet, you are forced to seek God for who He is, not just for what He gives. In Jeremiah 29:13, it says, You will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart. Not half your attention, not rushed prayers, all your heart. And for many people, silence is the only thing that pushes them into that level of seeking. But there is another layer that is even deeper. Sometimes God goes silent because He has already spoken, and He is waiting for you to obey the last instruction. Look at 1 Kings 19. Elijah expected God in the wind, the earthquake, the fire. But God came in a still, small voice. Which means if you are constantly looking for something loud, you may miss what God has already said quietly. So the real question is not just, why is God silent? The real question is, did I listen the last time He spoke? Because silence in your life is often not the absence of God's voice. It is the continuation of His last instruction. And here is where it becomes personal. Right now, in your life, there is something you know God has been dealing with you about. A decision, a habit, a direction, something you keep postponing, something you keep ignoring. And you are asking God for new answers, while the old one is still waiting for your obedience. That silence you feel, it might not be distance, it might be a pause. Now listen carefully, because this part matters. In Isaiah 50:10 it says, Who among you fears the Lord, who walks in darkness and has no light? Let him trust in the name of the Lord and rely upon his God. That means there will be moments where you are walking with God and still experiencing darkness. Not because you are lost, but because you are being led in a way that requires trust, not sight. This is the difference between surface-level faith and real faith. Surface faith says, I believe because I see. Real faith says, I believe even when I don't hear anything. And most people never grow into that level because they quit in the silence. They assume something is wrong. They assume God has left. They assume they have failed. But if you study Scripture carefully, you will see something consistent. The people God used the most were people who learned how to stay when He was quiet. So if you are in that place right now, where prayers feel empty, where answers are not coming, where everything feels still, don't rush out of it. Because this moment is doing something in you that noise never could. It is stripping you of dependence on feelings. It is building endurance. It is aligning your heart. And one day, when God speaks again, and He will, you will realize this silence was not wasted. It was necessary. So don't measure God's presence by what you feel right now. Measure it by what He has already said. And if you're still here, still listening, still holding on even with questions, then you are doing something many people fail to do. You are staying. And that is faith. If this spoke directly to where you are, don't ignore it. Type, I will trust God in the silence, in the comments. Not for me, for yourself. Let it be a decision. And if you want more messages like this that go deeper into what God is really doing behind the scenes in your life, subscribe and stay connected. Because sometimes the answers you're waiting for come when you least expect them, but only if you're still there to receive them. Invitance.